Hello again, Chris Lee and Chase Robinson, a Southeastern 16 here to preview the Sugar Bowl. Georgia and Notre Dame, the quarterfinals of the college football playoff. Notre Dame, a winner over Indiana and South Bend last week. Georgia had a bye week coming off an SEC championship win over Texas. We'll go through opt-outs, injuries. Of course, Georgia missing Carson Beck. Chase can't wait to see this one. I think both these teams strong in the line of scrimmage. Give us the details, kickoff lines, all that stuff before we dive into the matchup.
Yeah, this is going to be the nightcap on the first day of 2025 on New Year's Day there, as you mentioned, in the Sugar Bowl. And going into this one, as we record this on December 26th, Georgia is a 2-point favorite over Notre Dame, according to BetOnline. So Georgia, the favorite, 7:45 kick on ESPN after what will be should be a fun day of football on January the 1st.
Let's talk about when Georgia's got the football. The Bulldogs, of course, missing their starting quarterback in Carson Beck, who's done for the year. Still plenty of talent there, veteran offensive line, good players. Notre Dame just exceptionally gifted up front. Was super interesting watching them play in the end. I just think they're so talented on that side of the ball. What stands out to you in the matchup of Georgia's offense and Notre Dame's defense?
To me, the biggest thing, the best thing for Georgia is that they didn't have to play last week in the first round. They had some extra time for Gunner Stockton to really to figure out a game plan to revolve around him. He's their guy now. Carson Beck is out. Gunner Stockton is now the guy who's leading their offense. Now, I'm sure they didn't have to make a ton of changes to what they do, but still, he needs some time. Obviously, he came in at a very big moment against Texas. He did some good things. At other times, he looked like a backup quarterback. So they've had some extra time with him, and I think that's really good, especially going up against the Notre Dame defense. You look back to Stockton in the SEC championship, he was 12 of 16 passing for 71 yards. Again, he did not have a lot of experience going into that game. And so I think with some extra preparation, I think it will much help Georgia in this matchup. But Notre Dame looked really good against Indiana. And so it's going to be a tall task for Gunner Stockton in really his first start as the Georgia quarterback to go against this Notre Dame defense, who Marcus Freeman has had looking good in his time there with the Fighting Irish.
Chase, two things I'm watching here. Trevor Etienne for Georgia, really, really talented running back who's had some big games for them. And the other thing, the passing game at times has been a concern with that receiving core, which is, I mean, look, Georgia's always got talent, right? And so when I say this, you've got to take that into consideration. But this receiving core, the least impressive that Kirby Smart has had in a long time. I think they were among the country's leaders in drops. This is a place where Georgia's going to have to play really clean in order to get a win.
They are, and I think Etienne needs to break out and have a good night. I think that will certainly help Georgia. But yeah, they're going to have to be creative, and Gunner Stockton is he's going to have to come in as a leader. He can't play like a backup quarterback in this situation against a really good Notre Dame team in a quarterfinal game.
All right, let's flip sides of the matchup, and before we do it, tell us about the folks at BetOnline who sponsor our content, Chase.
Yeah, BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, college basketball, NHL to UFC. Head to BetOnline today. Don't forget to use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here.
Chase, let's get into Notre Dame's offense. Riley Leonard, Jeremiah Love looked pretty good last week. Love broke off a 98-yard run early in the game. The offensive line for Notre Dame, I think, had an injury preseason at left tackle, which left that team a little bit hobbled heading into the A&M game, which it won anyway. Georgia, of course, Kirby Smart's teams just defensively always elite. When you look at that side of the ball, what do you think are the keys and how this one goes?
You know, Georgia is going to be faced with a really tough dual-threat quarterback. You mentioned Riley Leonard. He transferred from Duke. He had 30 yards and a touchdown running against Indiana. Then he threw for 201 yards, 72% completion rate there in that win over Indiana. Now, I do think that Georgia's going to provide some things defensively that Leonard probably isn't used to seeing based off what the teams Notre Dame played this season. But still, Riley Leonard is a very talented quarterback. Georgia has struggled at times containing mobile quarterbacks. Jalen Milroe ran for 116 yards. Haynes King ran for 110 yards. Jackson Dart ran for 50 yards on Georgia. So Georgia defensively has got to contain Riley Leonard. He can't be running wide open like some of these other quarterbacks have against Georgia. So that's going to be very important to lock down Riley Leonard. You mentioned they got a good receiver as well. So I think Georgia's going to throw some things that Notre Dame has not seen from opposing defenses in this game. But I do think it'll be very vital for them to shut down Riley Leonard early in this game, Chris.
Yeah, I do too. Leonard's a guy that's played a lot of ball. They've got a multifaceted running game, does Notre Dame. Again, Georgia, not quite the mind-blowing stats you've seen defensively, but some of that's got to do with the schedule, which is one of the tougher ones in the country. So keep that in mind. Let's get to picks and why, and I'll start with you.
I'm going to take Georgia. I think that even with Gunner Stockton, I think they'll be able to produce enough offensively, but I think the game will come down to defense. And even with some youth in the defense for Georgia, I think they're still able to stop Riley Leonard and get it done. I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be very close, but I'm going to take the Georgia Bulldogs to edge out Notre Dame.
You know what's funny? I picked Georgia to win the whole thing before the playoffs started. I did not know that Carson Beck was not going to be a part of that. That was not entirely unforeseeable. But to me, Georgia had trouble in the passing game anyway at times. And now with the backup there, I'm just a little bit more concerned. I just like the way Notre Dame played a week ago. It felt like that Northern Illinois loss is a long, long time ago. I didn't think I'd be saying this, but give me Notre Dame this one, just given what they've got at quarterback and just, I think, a team that to me looked so good in the trenches when I saw them against Indiana. Maybe some of that was about Indiana, but I'm going to go opposite of you. Would it surprise me if Georgia won? No, of course not, because it's Kirby Smart and guys who won a lot of ball games there. But I'm just a little concerned about the quarterback spot here going into this game with what I think is an elite defense. All right, we'll be here to talk about it later. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and check us out when we wrap the game up after it's happened. For Chase Robinson, I'm Chris Lee. You've been watching Southeastern 16 presented by BetOnline.